Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to an episode of Plugged In. This is Daniel Torres, your host, and our special guest today is the head coach over at women's basketball for Miami-Dade College, Susan Summons. Coach, thank you so much for just taking the time to spend some time here this afternoon with us.
Look, Daniel, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. Whenever I have an opportunity to spend time with people in the community like you, Daniel Torres, who's making it happen, plugging talking sports in South Florida, that's what it's all about. I mean, South Florida is an amazing place. It's an amazing place for sports. We got a lot going on here. We got some hoops, we got some golf, we got some tennis, we got soccer, we got ping pong, we got the Marlins.
Yep.
Throwing out, we were talking before the show started and you were telling me, hey, you hit your 100th. You
Yep.
went out and you threw out that pitch. So,
Yep.
Big ups to you, Daniel, for what you're doing in spreading the word.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach. Now, we got to talk. You sent this over to me, and we got to talk about it. Just a historical season you just had. 21-9 overall, best record since 2021. Chief state rankings of the top six, top three team offense in Florida, 82.3 points per game, and top four team rebounding in Florida, 45 rebounds per game. Coach, you got to talk to me about this season. Talk to me about it. Just take me through it.
Oh, just walking you through it. I said earlier on the front part of the show, Daniel, you win games with talent, but you win championships and you go 21-9 with good people.
Yeah.
And we had some incredible student athletes that really pulled together, worked together, incredible season. And just all the pieces came together, the X's and the O's, as we say, as coaches, we talk about on the floor, but it's not just the X's and O's on the floor, it's the X's and the O's off the floor.
Yeah.
That chemistry, and chemistry can happen at any time. Sometimes it's natural. Sometimes you have to work at it. Sometimes you have to mold it. Sometimes you nurture it. But nevertheless, 21-9 since the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were coming off of trifecta conference championships right before the pandemic hit, Daniel. We were in a rhythm at the college, Miami-Dade women's basketball. The pandemic hit, and things changed for everyone across the world. Yeah. And so it took a couple of years to rebuild and reboot.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So just really putting up 100 or more points on 4 different occasions this year. One game, 132 points in one game. That's crazy. That's a lot of points. I think the Miami Heat can use some of those points.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Cleveland definitely hit more than 130 on them. So
yeah, Cleveland. Oh my gosh, Cleveland. That score, what was it? 138 to 83?
It was not pretty.
It wasn't pretty. Come on, the Heat. You guys are supposed to be caliente.
That's true.
On fire.
True. Hey, they gotta take some tips from you, Coach.
Hey, look, they need me on the floor on the sideline. If they're listening, look, come get me. It's okay. I can help out. But anyway, look, every team, every program, if you keep doing this, you might have a tough season. You might have a tough year. You might have a roller coaster window. We know that in sports, right? And the Heat's been on the top. They've been doing some extraordinary things. So big ups to what Eric Spoelstra does down there with that group. Because you know what? Those are millionaires every day.
Yeah.
But you know what? He says, look, if you're not sweating in his practice, you're not working. And I love that. So we can expect the Heat is going to do an overhaul in this offseason, right, Daniel?
Oh, guaranteed. There's some things going to change this offseason for sure.
We know some things are going to change. They got Hero. Yeah. You got Duncan over there on the sideline, Abato, but we gotta add another layer.
Yeah.
To not only be competitive, but to really solidify the playoff spot and then compete in the playoff spot while you're in there. Lone Depot. I was down at the Lone Depot Center, which is an amazing place. Yeah. You threw out the pitch there for the Marlins. Oh my gosh. Their graduation, I was there with Miami-Dade. 2025 commencement, 10,000 students graduating going through and walking through all of their footprints of dreams.
Yeah.
With grit, because dreams happen. The reality of it is, if you work hard or outwork your opposition, outwork them, and you believe in your goals and you believe in your dreams, then it happens. So I was just there at the Loan Depot Center as one of the graduation marshals, helping facilitate the process, watching graduates walk across the stage with our own Madeline Pumeyega, the CEO of Miami-Dade College, the leader, the student athlete herself, doing some amazing things with the Kaseya Center software CEO, Fred. So it was an exciting time. And of course, our own Kendall campus president, Dr. Brian Stewart.
Yep.
And they were doing it. Music was great. Celebration was great. They had a DJ. Come on. What graduation can you go to in South Florida? We're talking about plug-in talking spots. What graduation can you go to anywhere where they have a DJ playing some tunes in the front part of the graduation?
Hey, my graduation didn't have that.
What? Only in South Florida, only at Miami-Dade College. So it's Miami, and it's exciting to be here.
Coach, I gotta ask you, we'll take it back here. What first inspired you to pursue a career in coaching?
Oh, that's an interesting question, Daniel. I get that question often, and probably the best way that I could quickly sum it up is, I'm one of the first original women's professional basketball players for the WBL. And the first women's professional league in the United States. I was drafted in the 3rd round by the WBL New Jersey Gems and trained at the NBA Meadowlands where the New Jersey Nets play at.
Yeah.
And then I was traded to the New England Gulls, who was coached by the Boston Celtics player, Jim Luskatoff. Amazing history there. Became one of the first women's pro players for Boston and one of the original WBLs, and was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame for women's professional.
That's amazing, Coach.
Legendary history. And so in that window, at some point in that process, I wasn't playing, and one of my former history teachers and high school coaches needed some help at the high school ranks. And they said, hey, we think you'd do a great job coaching, and why don't you come over here to the high school and help us coach? And I thought, coaching? I don't know. Me? He said, you do a great job motivating people. You motivate by demonstrating. We've watched you. We think you can help us. So I took them up on it at Madison Park High School. They were they were 0-10 at that time when I came in. We went on like a 14 or 16 game winning streak, and we won the City Public High School state championship that year. And and we sent a player who we had as an All-American. Her name was Valerie Aran. We sent her to, at that time, FCCJ, Florida Community College of Jacksonville at that time. Mm-hmm. And that's how I started the connection with Florida from Boston. And that's how I got into coaching initially. And it went well. And she made me the co-high school coach. And then a job opened up at Roxbury Community College. At the time, I wasn't interested. I was a cop. I was a police officer for the Boston housing projects, full time. And they wanted me to come and coach. And I thought, I don't know, I'm going to coach at the college ranks. I don't know. And I loved being a police officer at that time. So a year passed, and the college contacted me again and said, look, we really want to hire you. We think you'd be a great college coach, and we really need you. And that particular year, I decided, you know what? I'm going to try this.
Try it.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. And I took the job, and we were ranked 5th in the nation and won a state JUCO championship and went to the national junior college national championship. And another All-American that I sent to East Carolina State Division I program. And that just started the whole domino effect of my college coaching career that transcended. And obviously, at that point, someone would say, well, how did you get to Florida? Well, I had a job, Division I opportunity to interview at Cornell University in New
Okay.
York as an associate coach. And I also had a job interview at Miami-Dade College. And I took the job interview at Miami-Dade College. I had the Cornell Division I interview scheduled, but when I got to Miami-Dade College and met Jim Cox, at that time, the late, great Jim Cox, the rest is history. I knew when he picked me up at the airport and I saw the South Florida skyline.
Oh, you saw Miami. You were sold already. You saw Miami like, I can get used to this.
Hey, Danielle, I saw Miami. I said, I could get used to this. Palm trees, la careta, black beans, platanos, yuca. You know what? I could do this. Beautiful weather. I could do this.
Yeah.
And I can build a championship program, and the rest is history.
What would you say was your biggest challenge transitioning from being a player into coaching?
I think one of the biggest challenges that anyone might face transitioning from a player to a coach, because not necessarily can a player who is a great player become a great coach. Teaching is coaching, coaching is teaching, but not always does that transcend that way. You know that, I know that. And so, but transitioning, you have to remember, once you transition from being a player to a coach, you're now a coach.
Yeah.
You're a professional. There is a line that you have to monitor and facilitate, and trying to build good relationships with players as a head coach is a very strategic process.
Yeah.
And you're transitioning. So that's important, to make sure you're still maintaining and cultivating the culture and the standards of the process of what you're trying to accomplish and what you're doing in retrospect, because you can't always be that friend to that player that you was, because when you were a player, you're now a head coach. So you're their coach. You're not necessarily their friend.
Yeah.
And I know that makes sense, and it's real, and it's reality. The game has changed both on the men and women's side across the board, not only at the high school ranks, but obviously, as you know, at the collegiate ranks, the junior college ranks, and the NCAA Division I ranks, both for men and women's sports. Look at what the portal has done for men's sports and now women's sports. Look what it's impacted at the junior college level. So this game is changing, and the sport of it is changing, and the culture of it is changing.
Would you say, now that you bring that up, would you say that NIL has made a huge impact into the way that the game is changing and the way coaches and the players operate?
Listen, Daniel, for years we've had this conversation off the show.
Yeah.
Many times. And what is it? You listen to some of these head coaches, on the podcast, keeping it real. Hey, you're paying players to pay.
Yeah.
You're paying players to play the game. Well, for years, institutions have been following up with these student athletes that have been competing, playing hard for every night for 30 games, leading them to NCAA national championships, Elite Eight, Final Four, Sweet 16s. And now these same student athletes and other athletes get to benefit from their hard work as a result of this name, image, and likeness. And so it has created a whole nother realm for semi-pro sports. It's players are jumping ship. There's no loyalty that exists anymore. I like to always talk about real things and incite the pulse or the heartbeat of people when they're listening, but it's real. And it's changed the way not only players are looking at the game, but the way head coaches are looking at the game and what they're strategically going to do at the NCAA Division I level. The other impact it's had, it also has really turned the attention and the scope and the eyeglass lens to looking at the junior college ranks And the junior college ranks has always been there, folks.
Yeah.
We've always been a viable option for any student athlete to get an incredible education, get an AA degree, and still go NCAA Division I. Hey, Daniel, we know of many NBA players, both on the women's side and the WNBA and the NBA, have gone through the junior college ranks to get their AA degree, gone to NCAA, and been drafted. We know that. So junior college and community college has always been a viable alternative. But since this transition, this trend, this new social media name, image, and likeness, entertainment, professional sports trend for collegiate sports has taken it to a whole nother level. And now what we've been saying all along is you can still capture your dreams by going. People are believing that. You have people that are going on podcast shows promoting the junior college ranks, saying these are the benefits. This is why you should go junior college. So the impact has been great. It's going to change the strength, the viability of the junior community college level, not only on the men's side, but on the women's side. And it's already happening. And the last component that this NIL mogul has changed and impacted is the high school ranks. Correct, Daniel?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen it.
Have you seen it? Tell me a little bit about what you've seen and the impact it's having for these high school seniors.
I have seen high school seniors either want money or already before even graduating expecting money from their university or colleges.
Insane, the name, image, and likeness money that they're offering. Yeah. They're offering to players that are going on visits. This is what we can offer you. 20 based on the conference, of course, based on the budget. And how about another component? I mean, high school players are now in a position where they not only have to compete, they already was competing, but now you're competing with the portal.
Yep.
You're competing with the portal because these NCAA Division I coaches, they got to win. And they're going to the portal to do it. And if you're listening to the press conferences after March Madness, after some of the NCAA games, Daniel, what are some of these coaches saying, both on the men and women's side? I'm sure you can echo some of their comments.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to go in the portal in order to stay competitive.
Yep.
We got to go in the portal in order to get back to the NCAA Sweet 16 or Elite 8. We got to go in the portal in order to do what that program is doing over there. The portal has created parity across the board for the field of NCAA. And you're not going to see it change.
Yeah, I think it's going down that route, and like you said, it's not going to change. Coach, how would you describe your coaching philosophy, and what do you emphasize to the girls over there at Miami-Dade during practices?
Well, my coaching and cultural philosophy really is comprised of a number of key components. One, it's never just been about basketball. It's about life and life skills. It's about creating dreams. I've always looked at myself not only as a life changer, but a dream maker. And it's about capitalizing on the opportunity to get an education. But while you're doing that, utilize the springboard that basketball and sports has provided us across the board to be all we can be and be a success, not only as a student athlete, because student comes before athlete, but to be a graduate and be the best kind of player. And I try to emphasize to students across the board, no matter what, the game has changed. You want to play NCAA Division I, you have to practice that way. You have to have a Division I mentality. You got to have a champion's mindset, not only in the classroom, but in practice, in your work ethic, because there's no shortcuts. Daniel, there's no shortcuts to success. Do you know of any? Do you know of very many students that take a shortcut and still accomplish being an All-American?
You can take shortcuts, but it's going to catch up to you later. You have to go through the process.
You have to go through the process, and you've got to trust the process, and you got to trust the person. And you can't be focused and get distracted by what I call background noise.
Yep.
Background noise comes in so many different dimensions and components. I just call it background noise, the kind of stuff that can cloud your judgment. It can cloud your ability to think clear and process information. And therefore, you sometimes will make bad decisions. You won't make good decisions. You won't see the clarity of really what's in front of you. And you might make a bad decision. It's real. It happens every day. But those are some of the components that I have cultivated in the Miami-Dade culture for years. And, this year was just extraordinary. 700 career wins, a milestone, the NJCAA Legacy Award. And it's the first time in, I want to say it's 40 years that the NJC is now bringing back that national award. And I was very fortunate to be among the recipients, which is incredible. 2025 National History Makers Award. You'll hear more about that later on. That on a publicist, my media representative is going to put something out on that. But just incredible team. All conference players, all Americans. Third in the state in team offense, third in rebounding, scoring 100 points, multiple points, finishing 21, winning 21 games. You playing in one of the toughest conferences and the toughest NJCAA Division I JUCO leagues in the country. Yeah. If you're doing that, you got to be doing something.
Now, what are some ways that you build chemistry throughout the season? Because chemistry, to be able to achieve all those things, chemistry is super important.
Chemistry is important, and there's a lot of different ways that you build chemistry. Sometimes chemistry just happens naturally. You have personalities that naturally connect.
Yeah.
Sometimes you recruit chemistry. Coaches understand the dynamic of that. You happen to recruit players that happen to know each other. Maybe they played against each other or with each other in another program or AAU, and they come to your program and they have a natural transition in chemistry and connection, not only to the game, but to each other when they come to your program. Another strategy of building chemistry is obviously trying to develop and create team bonding or team building activities. And just because you have 5 team building activities doesn't always guarantee that you're going to get the kind of chemistry that you want. I'm keeping it real because 39 years, I'm going into my 40th year. 39 years.
I'm sure you've seen it all.
I'm telling you, I've 39 teams, 39 years. I think that I have a pretty good foundation on the concept relating to not only team chemistry, but other components of the game. And I know well enough to know the art of human emotion.
Yeah.
Human psychology doesn't always result in that easy chemistry fix just because you're having 5 team building activities. It certainly promotes it.
Yeah.
It helps it. It nurtures it, and it might push it along a little faster. But I think it's important that if you got good people that understand the concept and they're all in, you're going to have a better opportunity to build that chemistry inside and out because they're good people and they want to win and they respect the game and they have passion for the game. Not only do they respect the game, but they respect their scholarship, they respect the program, they respect the coaching staff. And it's all relative and they enjoy where they're at. All of those components make a difference.
Have you ever had throughout your 39 years, have you ever had a team where you were like, wow, these kids don't get along with each other, but when it gets to the game and on the court, they just click?
Well, absolutely. That's a great question. That's a great question because that again, Daniel, refers back to the art of team chemistry. And we just hit on it. And I just echoed that it doesn't always happen naturally. But you know what? Sometimes you'll run across a team that just doesn't click in practice. But when the games start, they're all 100% in. They leave everything off the floor. And the focus is that team goal. We want to win the game. And in order for us to do that, we have to play together. And in order for us to play together, we have to connect. And obviously, we know if a team is connecting in practice, we hope that they transition that into the game. That's an ideal, and that's a perfect world. They're bringing that chemistry from practice, and they're transitioning that, and they're bringing it to the game. That's a perfect world, Daniel.
Yeah.
We know, many coaches around the world know that doesn't always happen like that. Yeah. You even talk about players that look good in practice. They practice good. They practice hard and great as coaches. You're excited and you're like, okay, great. You're going to bring that to the game. And you get to the game and that same player is missing in action. They're not showing up. They show up in practice, but in the game, they haven't transferred to the game mindset. So yes, it is definitely realistic. It definitely happens. It happens across the NCAA Division I level all the time. You see it in the game. So it's a reality. And it's something that you continue to work on. You continue to try to get the right pieces and the right components. When you're recruiting, there's no blueprint. You just have to try to, every time you're recruiting, you add another component, another ingredient that's a positive ingredient that helps you to have better and stronger results ultimately in your objective and your goal. And at the end of the day, what's in the forefront? The culture, championship, academic graduation, being a good teammate, things like being a good teammate. Something as simple as that is strong. It's very, very strong, being a good teammate and being a good person. Those are relevant.
So you touched on recruiting. What do you look for this program when you go on the recruiting trail? What kind of player, what kind of person do you look for to bring into the Miami-Dade College program?
Well, that's a great question, Daniel. And you've seen some of my teams over the years. You've been in the gym, you've emceed, you've commentated, you know the energy, you know the fire and the passion. And, I'm originally from Boston, the New York area. I'm a former junior college All-American, a national coach of the year, a 3-time assistant with USA Olympic basketball. So growing up with that Boston Celtic energy, and watching the New York Knicks and playing at Rucker Park as a ball player, I'm going to bring that fire, that style, that fast energy, that exciting style. I'm bringing the excitement to the game. And it's important that when you're recruiting, and this is across the board for any coach, because I was doing a show a couple of weeks ago and they asked that question and they said, that's a very good point. Coaches recruit players that are very similar, that fit their coaching style. Because you have to be able to look at those ingredients. That makes for a better fit. The coaching style, the system, the style that you're playing. If you play fast, if you play at half court, if you run a lot of motion, if you play the passing game. I've had players come to me that are point guards that I think are great shooters, tremendous shooters off the bounce. But they've said, in a previous system, they weren't shooting. They were just passing.
Yeah.
And in that style and in that system, it was a motion passing set. And so it has to do with the style, the system, your coaching philosophy, your coaching style. And so I would think that any coach is going to look at that when they're recruiting that player, because obviously that makes for a better style, but also a better successful team and a successful season, because now you have the pieces. And then, of course, as Forrest Gump would say, you still never know what you're going to get in the box of chocolate until you take the wrapper off. So you can have all the pieces you want and you can have all the talent, but when you get them in the gym and you get them on the floor and they're starting practice, that's when you really get to see what you have under the wrapper.
Yeah. So going into year 40, what goes into preparing for a new season on the court and off the court?
Well, a lot of things, Daniel. Certainly, we try to, as coaches, or any coach is always going to look at how can you be better? How can you be better? Pat Head Summit, the late, great Pat Head Summit, one of the things she used to talk about if they lost a game was the pressure was on her. And it was her job to make sure they were better for the next game. And she really lit into her players. She really charged into them. She let them know, look, this is what you're not doing. You have to do this in order for this team to be great. And that player accepted that. They embraced it. You know, they accepted that positive, constructive criticism to be better. And great players that are striving to be great are going to be coachable.
Yeah.
You're going to be willing to listen so they can be better. So, you know, I'm looking at all different components, the training, you know, preparing better, being stronger, more competitive, knowing what the national ranks will be, knowing what the competition is going to be, making sure, you know, if we had a deficit in the rebounding category, make sure we're filling that deficit, that we have not only more rebounding, but greater rebounding. If a coach had a deficit in rotation, to make sure we're looking at the recruiting component that allows us to have greater depth. So all of those components, and also obviously the culture, players that fit the culture, players that are going to fit the style and the system, and the expectation and the standards. Again, this is a Division I high-powered Division I intercollegiate program. And every night, there's not a night off in 30 games. You have to show up every night to compete. It's not the YMCA. It's not Girls and Boys Club. It's not recreation. It's Division I JUCO at the highest intercollegiate competitive level. And the training is extremely intense. The demands and expectations are intense. And I let players know immediately, again, if you're striving to become or be an NCAA Division I player, top 10, top 15, top 20, top 40, then you have to make sure you're training at this level with that mindset so that you can easily transition and you can adjust and you can mature and have that maturity in leadership and maturity in your work ethic. Laziness and being a champion, they don't share the same room.
Absolutely.
They don't share the same space. They don't. You'll never find those two people, champion and laziness, walking the same footprints, walking in the same classroom, dribbling the same basketball, because they don't. They're completely opposites. You surround yourself with good people that are going in the same good direction you're going in, you're going to do well.
Coach, what would you say has been the most valuable lesson that you have learned as a coach?
I think one of the most valuable lessons I learned, and there's many, every year I'm learning a valuable lesson from my students. I don't want to ever stop learning, because learning allows you to grow.
Yeah.
Learning allows you to become better and to become that better self. So I'm always striving to be better. And if I'm better, then I can help my student and student athletes become better. In retrospect, professional growth and development, learning, listening, researching, understanding what's working over there, would that work over here? You know, let me use that strategy. How about this strategy? And I have people that call me all the time and ask me for strategies. Hey, coach, what did you do in that game? I watched the video and I really like that zone defense. You know, hey, did that work over there? Yes. Well, what about some? I get that often. So striving to be all that you can be going into any new season is relevant to the outcome of that season. And I try to start with the end in mind. I start with the end. In other words, we're starting with the focus of nationals. So, right away, the expectation and standard is so high. Coach is talking nationals. She's talking nationals. She's talking state title. And that could be a high level of pressure. But you know what? I have learned over the years, if students understand what the standards are, and you say it, it's not enough to think it or write it down. You got to say it. You got to put it up so they see it every day. I did that. I put it in my locker room. I created some standards, and I put standards up that were high, that we wanted to score between 85 and 100 points. We wanted to pull down between 40 and 55 rebounds. And I created that as a sign, and I put it up everywhere. So every day you see it. And what did we do? We scored between 85 and 100 points all season long. And we were pulling down between 45 and 44 and 50. It's one game we pulled down 68 rebounds. So we know that strategy works. And of course, trying to make sure you build relationships with students.
Absolutely.
And student athletes. You have to meet them where they're at. The game has changed. Someone asked me, and I had a parent ask me, Coach Summers, you've been coaching a long time. The game has changed. You got social media. You got NIL. What are you going to do different with these students that are entitled? My daughter. And I answered that question. I said, I'm going to maintain the standards of integrity.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lower the standards of integrity just because no, you want to earn it. You're going to earn the process. You're going to earn this. It's not about we owe you. It's not about entitlement. It's about what you're earning. You're working towards this. Miami-Dade provides you an invaluable opportunity for an invaluable academic degree education at one of the most quality, most looked at national public institutions by U.S. World News in the country. So you have to be able to give back. It's not just about taking, it's also about giving back to the program and working hard. You play for the name on the front of your chest, and the name on the back is going to prosper. I paraphrase that from Mike Bellato. Our athletic director. But another point is grit. You have to have grit as a student athlete in today's game. You have to have resilience. Not everything is going to go your way. What do you do when it doesn't go your way? You have to be able to overcome adversity, be tough. I think it was Rick Pitino who said that on a podcast. He was on Twitter, and it went viral. And you know what? He's just keeping it real. But life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens, and you have to be able to overcome adversity, go through the obstacles, jump a hurdle, have resilience, wake up the next day, because guess what? The sun is going to shine. It's going to shine bright when you wake up the next morning. And hard times don't last, but hard people last longer.
Amen. I love that. I love that. I love that. Coach, how do you feel the landscape for women in coaching has changed since you started?
Well, that's an amazing question. From Daniel, from watching the news and the podcast and looking at the NCAA March Madness. I mean, just look at the NCAA March Madness component, entertainment, social media, ESPN, CBS, what they've done for women's sports, just in including the major components of March Madness for women.
Yep. Oh, it's grown so much.
It has grown exponentially. Yeah. And the ratings alone, the arenas across NCAA sold out for games, but it has unfolded. And women deserve a seat at the table. Far too long, and there's still a lot more growth to come. They still need to work hard to bring the salaries up to comparable to what the men are making.
Mhm.
But, we can look at some of the top NCAA coaches and Division I women coaches that are making history. Your own Don Sterling, right
Yep.
there in South Carolina. How about our own Yolette McPhee-McCune, who's at Ole Miss? She's a former Miami-Dade College Lady Shark graduate, making it happen. I mean, they took down in NCAA. They went to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
So you've got some great coaches out there who are making a difference, not only in the game, but they're making a difference in women's sports, and the game has changed. Women athletes are training harder. They're now taking training seriously. They're getting trainers, and they're training not one day a week. Some female players are out there training 4 and 5 days a week. They're benching. They're on the weights. The historical stereotype that they used to say, oh, I don't want to lift weights. I'm a woman and I might develop. Yeah, that's out the door. Forget that. You can still be a lady off the court and be a beast on the floor and still be a woman.
I love it.
Yeah, and that has changed. That mindset has changed, not only for the female athlete, but for the parents that are also involved in their kids' training. They're seeing that. They're seeing, hey, my daughter or my son needs to train harder. They need to be stronger. They need to have improved cardiovascular to have a better shot at making this team, or to be competitive, or to be a standout high school top player or a standout top collegiate player. So it is all relevant to the game. It has all helped the historical transformation of the women's game. I'm just very fortunate, very blessed to be alive, to be in this moment, on this journey, to be a part of it, helping to make history and being a part of history, and helping students graduate from Miami-Dade, capture their dreams, and now go out to a Division I and experience the benefits of that NIL. I had a student who was on a visit, and she was offered X amount of thousands of dollars from NIL. And I told her, I want you to think about that for a moment. That's how much the game has changed, not only on the men's side, but the women's side. I wish they had that when I was playing the game, Daniel. I was putting up 40 points. I was the top player with nowhere to go historically, because at that time, they didn't have the invaluable scholarships that they have for women now. They didn't have the media. They didn't have the great TV coverage. They didn't have the NIL. You played the game, and you played it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And you didn't have the exquisite athletic sports medicine training and training modalities and equipment. If you got hit in the mouth and you started bleeding, you went to a trainer, or you went to whoever was sitting there, you grabbed a bag of ice, you put it on your mouth, you stopped the bleeding, you got some gauze, it's done, and you went back out on the floor.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. And so I'm very fortunate and very blessed and very grateful to be in this moment, to see the game, to be a part of it. You see my basketball back there, 700 career wins, moving me up as one of the top 8 winningest NJCAA active coaches, and one of the first African-American women, only African-American women. That's history.
Yeah.
Not just for me, but for people to come behind me. And, often they ask me, how do you do it? Where do you get that energy? Where does it come from? I was in Panera Bread this morning getting my annual cup of tea. And I walked in, and it turns out there was a gentleman in there who happened to be a parent. He says, I know you. And then some of the workers came out, and the man, hello, coach. Hello, coach. Coach, I finished my classes at FIU. Coach, hi, coach. And the gentleman is standing there going, oh my gosh, you've got to be a celebrity. And I said, no, I'm just someone that inspires. Yeah. He said, but I know you. I said, I used to run a very popular basketball camp, and your son was in my basketball camp for since he was 6 years old.
Wow.
And I said, "What's your last name?" He said, "Aravello." I said, "And what's your son's name?" "Mike." "How old is he?" I said, "He's 25 now." "I want you to go back to your son, Mike, Aravello. And I guarantee you, he's going to remember Best of the Rest basketball camp. One of the popular in the summer. We had over 100 kids in that gym at Miami-Dade.
Wow.
And I run into kids everywhere around South Florida who grew up in my basketball camps, and they're now doctors or teachers or lawyers or coaches, and they run into me in Starbucks or Panera Bread or at Dick's Sport, and they chase me down, "Coach, Coach, you remember me? I'm Jose. I was in your basketball camp. I'm like 20 now. You look I loved your camp. I was motivated. You inspired me." So if I'm touching someone's life,
Yeah.
changing a life, Daniel, whether it's a student, an adult, someone, a colleague, someone that I see, you don't know what kind of day someone's having. So whenever I see them, I always want to leave them with something inspirational. So maybe it uplifted them that day and it motivated them to go out and take action and do something great to change their life and elevate their life. And I think that's important. And sports has been a springboard, not only for me, but for you too, Daniel.
Yeah.
I've watched you. You've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
I've been a fan of yours from afar, but I've watched you.
Thank you.
When you and I connected, we just had a natural connection.
Yeah.
And I always tried to share and insert in some motivational nuggets, throw them at you, and a crossover or pass them to you. So, I'm proud of you. And I just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because you're in the right lane. Your footprints are walking throughout South Florida.
Thank you so much, Coach. I really appreciate that. And I just really appreciate this was a treat, honestly, to have you on here. And I'm sure the viewers are going to love this. Again, I appreciate you so much, being over at Miami-Dade College and emceeing. And I just loved watching your teams and your passion for coaching and your motivation. So I really just thank you so much for taking your time to be here today.
Well, Daniel, look, plug talk spots. Susan Summons, SusanSummonsSpeaks.com.
Yep.
Susan Summons YouTube, IG, Twitter. It's all about plugging not only sports, but plugging life.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to feel good and be great. That's why I'm on this show. That's why I took time today to spend time with you, Daniel, because you're plugging talk sports throughout South Florida. I believe in South Florida. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in and watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you, Coach, once again, and we'll see you guys for the next episode.